Okay, welcome to my session on using configurable reports as a learning analytics tool. My name is Elizabeth Dalton. I work at Granite State College in New Hampshire in the United States, and we are a public institution, part of the University System of New Hampshire. We are the adult education branch of the system, so a lot of our students are, our median age is about 35 years old students, and 70+% of our students are completely online. 70+% of our enrollments are completely online. So we have found, as we've been going with this, we've been doing online learning since 1999. We've been on Moodle for about 3.5 years. We found as we've been doing this that it's very important to us to be able to monitor what's happening on our system in a quick and accessible way, both for our instructors and for people who are helping to administer our courses, in particular our program managers in academic affairs and our instructional designers. So over the course of time, I was originally hired as an instructional designer, but we found that we needed somebody to do more system administration, customization of Moodle, finding particular plugins and tools that would help us make this a more effective learning environment for our learners. And a couple of years ago, they made a position for a Moodle system administrator, and that's me. And one of the things that I do is create reports for different audiences here at Granite State College. And those are the reports that I'm going to talk about today. As I go along through, feel free to type questions in the chat window, or if you need to, unmute your mic and shout out your questions. That's fine too. We don't have a really large group today, so I think we can do that. But I will be keeping an eye on the chat window if you want to put questions there. So what do we mean by learning analytics? I'm in the process of preparing to do my dissertation, and my dissertation advisor asked me about, what's the difference between learning analytics and the kind of statistical work that researchers do anyway. And one of the key differences is that we're using live data out of the Moodle system, or whatever learning management system people happen to be using, but of course we're all using Moodle. And this data is meant to be used in real time to make decisions, and these decisions may be based on the predictive power of the data or diagnostic, or we may be analyzing our system to see how we can improve it more. Those beneficiaries are principally students, of course. They are the prime people for whom we run a college, and in support of that, for our instructors and our administrators. So the reason that we went with the configurable reports tool, as opposed to some of the other reporting tools that we could have used, including the wonderful ad hoc queries report, is that the configurable reports tool can be made accessible to anyone who's a Moodle user on the basis of role permissions. So this is the configurable reports block that we're using. It's a plugin. It offers form-based reports that are very easy for people to set up, as well as SQL-based code. I'm going to show the form-based reporting a little bit, but mostly in this discussion we'll be talking about the SQL version. Again, the very important aspect that I can make these reports available to instructors within courses only about their own courses, or to administrators across the site. Eventually I'll be making some reports available to students as well. And there are many, many existing SQL reports that can be used as is or adapted, and I've included the link here. Now this reporting plugin uses the same format as Tim Hunt's excellent ad hoc reporting tool, so we're able to take advantage of those reports and share them, which is very helpful. When you click on the Manage Reports link in the Configurable Reports block, you see a list of all of your current reports. We have dozens of reports, and about 15 of them that are made available to most of our users. And you have a list of the reports, the type of report it is, whether it's at a site level or a course level, type of report in terms of whether it's a SQL report or one of the pre-formatted form-based reports for a particular purpose, who created it, the usual sorts of editing icons, and then how it can be exported. And at the bottom of your list is an Add Report button where you can create a new one. And you can also import reports from repositories. So this is a really nice feature of configurable reports as well. I'm not doing a live demo here. These are just screenshots from my system because Big Blue Button doesn't like doing a display of my desktop, but there are some great categories of reports available, and you can pull those in directly. You can also share reports by exporting them with the download button, and that will create an XML file that you can then import here and use them on your system. So there are a lot of ways to exchange reports and share them. When you create a new report, you give it a name, put some descriptive information that will show at the top of the report, and then choose the type of report. And again, there are some specific form-based types that are available. We're going to be mostly talking about the SQL reports in here. You can make reports accessible from within any course, and you have some other options as well, which I'm not going to go over in detail because Configurable Reports has good documentation that you can make use of. The form-based reports allow you to select columns from the general table type and give them names that are descriptive, and you can rearrange them and align left and right and that sort of thing. And this is a nice feature. You can make this available directly to instructors so that they can throw together their own quick reports. But what we found is that even with a form-based system, a lot of people don't really understand how reports work or how to get the most out of the system. So we end up writing a lot of custom SQL reports and sharing them around with our users. So, this is an example of what the SQL code looks like, and I'm going to get into a little bit later about how to use some resources to help you write your own SQL code. But of course, one of the best ways to learn is to go to that page that I linked to earlier and look at some of the existing code, try a few, modify them a little, and that's how I learned. In our system, we have reports at multiple different levels. And so I'm going to start with the courses, the reports that we offer to our instructors inside courses. And these make use of a couple of custom tokens that pull information out of the current context. So the current course ID and the current user ID, and the reports that I'll show you are customized by these tokens without the user having to put anything in. We make these available to our instructors and our course managers. I think eventually we'll be making them available to students. And we've created a local naming convention that just helps keep our reports organized. And this is just in how we choose to name our reports. So our 100 series reports will have individual or student information, 200 series, faculty interactions and details sort of across the course, and the 300 series are course design and details meant for being used during our staging and development process. So here's an example. This is one of our most popular reports. This is the 110 student weekly participation. So what we've done here is I've grayed out the names to protect the guilty and the innocent, and Moodle makes the distinction between views and edits. And of course, there are more distinctions available with the new reporting scheme, the new logging scheme. These reports were written based on the old logging scheme, and I'm still in the process of converting them. But I find that it's much more useful to view and talk about the edits that are made rather than the views. So the edits are changes that the student has made to course contents, usually submissions in the form of forum posts or assignment submissions or contributions to a database or a glossary. In other words, substantive work. Now, of course, I can't tell if a forum post is really substantive. It may just say something like, hello, but I count it if it's posted, I count it if it's an edit. And we break these up in terms of our 12-week courses. We offer courses that run 12 weeks during 3 out of our 4 quarters and then 8 weeks during the summer. We make those courses available to students a little bit before the start of the official term. So we have our pre-term interactions, and then starting in week 1, week 2, week 3, and so forth, we show the instructor how many edits each student has made per week. And this helps them catch students who are just slipping off the radar, starting to not participate in a course. It helps instructors catch these trends over time before they have a student who really disappears completely. So in this case here, you can see, for example, a student was participating mostly, they had a week when they didn't, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. A report like this can help the instructor catch this before the student starts to fail the course and contact them. We provide a link here that's covered up to the student to message them through Moodle, and a link to their academic advisor, which creates an email that that uses the academic advisor email. We populate this information from our student information system, and we store it in custom fields in the user profile. Now, for convenience, we also offer links to the logs and the outline and activity outline and consolidated activity reports that Moodle already has. And we provide these links here because we found that our instructors tend not to be able to find them easily where they are currently located in the report block. So the report portion of the administration block. So we've pulled those up and made them more visible by linking to them here in this report. This is a report that we're going to be making available to instructors that will help them see for themselves what their own weekly participation looks like in terms of different activities in the course. And I think eventually we'd like to make this available to students as well. We have a belief that we're discussing here that if you are recording and reporting on data about somebody, they should have visibility to that data as well. So with that in mind, we'll be wanting to make this kind of information visible to our instructors and learners so that they can understand how they are being monitored on the system. Sometimes we don't need as much information about the students. The first two reports I've shown you take a little bit of time to pull up because they process a lot of log data. This is a very quick report that the instructor can pull up at any time that gives the student's name, their email address. Again, these are grayed out on this version, a link to their academic coach, and the program that they are enrolled in. So this is their major. And this is just, again, pulling information out of the user profile. The instructor has visibility to this information, but this is much more accessible to the instructor, faster and easier for them to access than hunting down the people one at a time and seeing them there. So what we found is that the configurable reports lets us add new functionality to Moodle without having to vet a lot of individual plugins or develop individual plugins. There are a lot of things that we need that are really just about displays of information. So that's an example of that. Now, moving on, sometimes what we want to know is more than just what's the student doing, but how are the student and the instructor interacting. So in this report, we try to provide an overview for the instructor of all the student activity and the instructor responses. Again, the students are listed over here, and then we summarize, did the student participate this week in a number of key factors, and has the student been contacted by the instructor this week via those same factors? And then we break it down over the past 7 days and in the course to date. So for the past 7 days, we tell the instructor for each student, have they posted to any forum? Has the instructor replied to a post by this student in any forum? Have other students replied to posts by this student in any forum? Now, I've seen some really interesting network diagrams that people have built with data out of learning management systems, and those are great, but difficult to program. This is something that's quick and accessible and easy now, and we can tell if a student is likely to feel like they're being ignored because nobody is responding to their posts. So here, for example, I have a student who has posted twice and nobody has responded. Maybe because they just posted this morning, maybe because they didn't post anything of substance, but this is a case where I'd want to go and take a look and see what's going on with this student. In most of the other instances, students who are posting are being responded to. Here, I have a student who posted 22 times and got 18 responses back from other students. It's probably fine that the instructor has only responded to this student 2 times because probably only 2 of those were substantive. So this just gives the instructor a quick overview of what the communications are looking like in the course. We also look at how many submissions to assignments the student has made over the past 7 days, and how many assignments the instructor has graded, which may or may not be the same ones, over the past 7 days. This is another way that students really like to hear from their instructors. And then finally, because sometimes contacts happen in different ways, we have how many messages students sent to instructors and instructors sent to students. And by accumulating these 3 things together, we get the answer to that. Did the student participate this week? Was the student contacted this week? If we see a line of zeros or very low interactivity, we might like to know, well, prior to this week, what's been happening? So this is a student who hasn't really been very active in the whole course so far, and it's probably not so much of a surprise that they haven't really been active this week. So these two views side by side give the instructor a pretty good sense of how active each student is being in the course, particularly over the past 7 days. Any questions so far? Everybody asleep out there? This is a new report that I just made this morning. I was asked in a conference with a couple of other people, well, what if, how many students are actually using the resources that we create in these courses? How do we know? And so this report pulls up for each section in the course, or module if you prefer, each of the items that are in that section, the name of the item, the total number of views, and the total number of submissions if that's relevant, and then a count of the number of students who viewed the item and the number of students who submitted. So what we'll see is in this particular case, you're seeing almost every student has looked at these items, but not everybody has submitted. What we see sometimes is resources that have been added to a course that almost nobody is paying attention to or that fewer people are taking advantage of. And this is something that can be used, especially when we're revising a course, to say, how much are students making use of these particular resources? Or during a course, if a lot of students have questions, the instructor can come in and take a look and say, well, you know, none of you have looked at the video that I made that helps overview all of this. So if you could please go in and do that and then post your questions, you know, or is there a problem with the video? You know, why is nobody looking at this video? So it just creates a way to have a sense of what students are paying attention to and how we can help them better by knowing what resources they've already tried to use. Of course, you can get this individually per student by looking at the logs or by looking at the completion report. But again, this is just meant to be a quick overview summary for the instructor. Now, at the course level, sometimes we want to provide information about a course to people who wouldn't normally have access to the course details. So in the course, in the admin block, of course, there's the edit course details, but sometimes our tech support folks need to be able to answer questions, even though they don't have the right to edit those details. So I created this very quick little report that just provides some basic information about how the course is configured. So if the max upload size has been set really low or the gradebook has been set to be hidden, this helps alert the tech support folks so that they can tell what's going on and give good support to the students quickly without having to contact the instructor first. So here is an example of how I can use the Configurable Reports plugin to provide read-only access to something that Moodle only provides write-only access, so we try to control that more tightly. This lets me be more flexible about what information I make visible. On the other hand, I have to be careful about reports that I create and the way I make them visible because I can get around the permissions in Moodle by doing this. Fortunately, the way we have our configurable reports and our database set up, we can't make any changes through this, so at least I'm safe in creating reports that only display information, but I do have to be aware of FERPA constraints and restrict information about students to people who should have access to that. At the course level, we try to review all of our courses before they go live, ideally. So we put our courses into two major categories, production categories and staging categories. And we report out of the production categories at the site level and at the, what I mean to say is we report out of our staging categories at the site level so that our instructional design team and our academic affairs managers can keep an eye on courses and see that they're being developed sufficiently before the start of the term. As a mainly adult college, we have a lot of adjunct faculty, primarily adjunct faculty, and we don't have very many traditional department heads. So our academic affairs managers and our instructional designers are providing that kind of mentoring and QA for course development prior to the start of the term. If we're going to report on that, we feel that the faculty need to be able to see what they're being reported on. So here's an individual line of a report that I'm going to show later across the institution, but this is just for this course, and this line is visible to instructors so they can see the details about their course. They can see that their profile has description in the bio, that they have uploaded a picture to their profile, which are things that we want to see. They haven't made any of the report blocks hidden. We have some information about an optional instructor details block, which I have to do by doing a string comparison against a UU encoded bit of text, very painful. Whether they're in the collapsed topics course format, which is what we prefer they use, and they're using the weeks structure, which is what we prefer, the number of weeks defined in the course settings, which is pulled out of our course information system banner, and then the number of weeks that are named and visible in the course, which we hope will be the same. And then we break down just some general thoughts that we think will help improve course quality, the number of forums and the number of weeks that include at least one forum. Graded activities and weeks that include at least one graded activity, which could be a forum. Gareth is apparently excited by this. Ungraded resources and weeks that include at least one resource. And then we know that sometimes people are using manual grade items which can't be attached to a week, so we include that number here just so we can keep an eye on what's going on in case there aren't, in case they've used a different method for grading their forum, for example, that uses a manual grade item. We look for a file with the tag, not the file name, but the activity name for an attached file that includes the text syllabus. Gareth is the author of the collapsed topics format, so he's surprised to see that we're using it. We are big fans of yours. And then the days ago that the syllabus was last updated, because we don't want to see a syllabus that's a year old sitting in here. We occasionally trip over one that's a couple of years old and still mentions Blackboard, which we used to use as our LMS. So we don't want to be seeing stuff like that. We want to see a nice, updated, clean syllabus. We also provide, for the convenience of our instructors, again, this is usually used during the development phase, a weekly breakout that says, okay, here's the week, here's the section name that you've given to that week, and it has this many resources, this many forum, and this many graded activities. And we'd like to see no zeros in any of these boxes, but we don't make that a requirement at this point. We just show this to the instructors and hope they get the hint. Our instructors fight with the gradebook, and I know that that's true for everybody else as well. We're still on 2.6. We're looking forward to gradebook enhancements on 2.8. We can't go to 2.8 yet because of the tendency of Moodle to change values of grades for old courses, so we're waiting for a fix for that. We're hoping to update the first week in July, which is our next break between terms. We run 4 terms a year, so we only have 1 week breaks in between most of them. We missed our last opportunity to upgrade to 2.8, so we're still stuck on 2.6, which of course is end of life now. Oh well, I won't go into that anymore. So what we try to do is help people see what their gradebook looks like and make sure it matches what is in their syllabus, hopefully. So we show them their gradebook category, what weight they've got on that category, what kinds of activities they're including in that category and how many different activity types, with sort of a thought that maybe more different activity types is good, and then the actual names of those activities and how many activities are in each of the gradebook categories. Most of our instructors tend to use categories for weekly assignments. These are an external LTI checkpoint, forum, things like that. And they say, the forum will be worth 10% or 20% or something like that. And this just gives them a quick overview to see if their gradebook is set up in such a way that it probably matches what they meant to do in the syllabus. So just a quick overview there. So that's it for the individual course level reports. Now I'm going to move on and talk about the site-wide reports. Do we have any other questions about the course level reports before I move on? Seems like you guys are doing okay. Everybody is stunned. Well, I'll try to keep it lively. All right, site-wide reports. These are intended for our course managers and instructional designers. And we make a distinction, as I said earlier, between staging and production. Our staging courses are those that are in prep for about 3 months before go live, before the start of a term. And then our production courses are the ones that are in term. We also have archived courses. I haven't created reports yet specifically about archived courses, although we do have some reports that look at archives, and I'll show you those as we kind of go on here. We use all of these reports to try to support our quality initiatives. We don't have very many hard and fast rules at Granite State. We have an ongoing lively discussion about what we think promotes quality in learning and academic freedom of individual faculty. So we're trying to use these reports as dialogue starters, as ways to support good conversations with faculty about what really works to help people learn. Now, of these reports that I'm going to show you, we've made our best informed judgment about what we think are worth tracking, but I'd like to also let you folks know that I'm just waiting on my IRB approval, my final approval. My dissertation, which I hope to be completing this summer, will be looking at some of these kinds of metrics and seeing to what extent they really do predict that students are engaged in courses and actually complete courses for credit, which is something that we're very concerned about here. So hopefully by the end of this summer, or at least by this fall, I will actually have statistical evidence for the validity of these reports and for their value in terms of helping students complete courses. Joshua asks, am I coming back next year to present? I hope to be presenting preliminary results at the Moodle in August. And regardless, yes, I'll probably come back here and do it again next year too. I'll be telling everybody if this works. All righty. So again, we have our local numbering convention. So at the 400 level, we do our pre-term QA readiness reports out of staging. Our 500 series, our current term monitoring reports in production. Our 600 series about a student orientation that we have. This is sort of semi-used at the moment. We're kind of in flux about how we're going to do that. 700 series not using yet. 800 series are resource and feature usage reports, and these go by date range rather than by category, so we can actually pull back and look at archives or production or staging or whatever we need to look at. So let's see some examples. This is one of the first reports I ever developed. This, well, it's a later version of it anyway. So this is the 415 course review. This is what we use prior to the start of the term, and we run this one every week, and we keep looking at it to see how our courses are doing. We can see the name of the course. Of course, I've got some things grayed out here. The type of course, because we have online, hybrid, and blended, and they're all a little different. We have face-to-face, and I'll be talking about that separately. A section number, the instructor, and then again, this is the same information that we saw earlier, but now it's rolled up for all of the courses in staging. Does their profile have a bio? Is there some description on their profile page? Does their profile have a picture? Are all the required blocks visible? Is the optional instructor details block visible? This is where they can put things like their office hours. I want to point out in the required blocks, we have a block called MySQL Profile that we have enabled and set up at the site level that automatically pulls up the instructor information, the name, their contact information, and their picture, and adds it to every course. So our instructors don't even have to do that. That's automatically done by default for them with the wonderful MySQL Profile block. End of plug. We look to see if there are any extra instructor blocks, which is anything that includes the text instructor in the name, and we try to get rid of those. Question is the MySQL Profile block in the plugins database? It certainly is. And again, that name is MySQL Profile. We find that one very helpful. It's the kind of thing that I'd actually really like to see in core. Okay, so then again, we look to see, are we in the collapsed topics format and in the week structure? Thanks again to Gareth. And then how many weeks are defined in the course settings? So here you can see we have courses of different lengths. We have some intensive 6-week courses that run for half a term. Most of our courses run for 12 weeks. In the summer, our courses run for 8 weeks, and this particular course runs for 8 weeks, even though it wasn't a summer course. And then we look again to see how many weeks have a forum, how many weeks have at least one graded activity. We want to see a graded activity in every week, but it doesn't always happen. how many weeks have resources, and when was the syllabus last updated. So this gives us a quick overview for all the courses that are currently in staging, about to go live next term. Do we think they're ready? And I variously modify this report as we come up with different things that we think we ought to be checking. So that one's always in flux. We have a lot of use of meta courses where we have co-listed courses that are taught at both an undergraduate and a graduate level, for example. So this is a convenience report that we list meta course enrollments. We also now have a meta course update plugin, which is really handy. So we use that to upload comma separated value list to create the meta links. That's been a huge help, but we're still waiting on better meta course link management. This at least helps us see whether this has happened correctly. Again, using configurable reports to make up for gaps or places where we wish Moodle had functionality. Instructor cohort enrollment. We would like to be able to have certain things happen for all instructors. And in order to help enable that, we create a cohort that includes all instructors, and we use this report to keep that cohort up to date, because we can't just automatically add cohorts, add users to cohorts when we create them. We're hosting with Remote Learner, and we're using their Data Hub plugin to create users, and we don't have the ability to add users to cohorts using their plugin, so we have this little workaround. All right, I said that we do have face-to-face courses that we include information about. That's all of these, and we are just now starting to require all of our face-to-face faculty to use Moodle. At this point, all we're requiring is that they attach a syllabus. So we're looking to see how old is the syllabus. As you can see, we're still getting some really old files put in here. When courses get copied forward from old versions, they get an old syllabus. We want to see those getting updated more, so this helps us to do that. And it also helps us to get a sense of what else people are putting into these courses when they're companion courses for face-to-face classes. So how are our non-online courses making use of Moodle? Now we're moving on to courses that are in production or about to be in production. This is kind of an interesting report that I created on request that creates a list of information with a link to the actual file name. This isn't the name of the activity or the attached file module. This is a link to the actual file name, and lists all of these, and we can use the Down them All plugin for Firefox and actually download and create a zip of all of the syllabi for a given term using this report. So that's something that they wanted. This is the online participation report. Very similar looking, thanks. Very similar looking to the student participation, but this one's for instructors. And I actually made this one first. And then later I thought, well, you know, we can give this to instructors as well. So we're looking at the individual courses, the instructors, and the course start date, because we have some that start in the middle of the term, whether the course is visible or not, because that might tell us that it's been canceled or hasn't started yet. And then the total number of edits, where again, an edit is a substantive change. And then before term, and then for each of the terms of the course, and you can see I took this snapshot in week 3, and we can see we have some instructors who are really super active and some that are not so active. And what we hope is that a course that has 14 students in it will be a little more active than this one, but you know, it's starting to pick up in the 3rd week, so hopefully that will go okay. What we would like to be able to do is automatically send this report out once a week to the managers of these faculty. We can do that from Tim Hunt's ad hoc queries report, but we can't do it from configurable reports yet. That's something that I'm looking at, trying to lift the code out of the ad hoc queries reports and put it in here, but I'm not a production programmer. I'm not very fast at programming, so I'm going to have to see if I can figure out how to do it. The reason that we want to do it this way, yeah, as Tim says, it's kind of odd to have two, but Tim's plugin is very safe because only admins and people with a specific reporting permission can see it. This plugin allows information to be displayed to anyone. So it's important to be able to control who has access to certain information, but on the other hand, sometimes I want to be able to email information to people who don't have that particular reporting permission, and I can't do it with the other plugin, so I need to be able to do it out of this plugin. So here we are. And then we have a link back to the logs for this particular instructor in this particular course, so that if their participation is really low, the manager can go and take a quick look and see what's going on. Okay, so now we're moving on to site-wide resource reports. We have a number of third-party services that we pay for, and we'd like to know to what extent are these being used. So we use Blackboard Collaborate as our live web conferencing solution. We have Kaltura for media streaming. We're now using Turnitin, and there are a number of external LTI compliant services. There's data that people ask us for accreditation or for ranking surveys, like the Newsweek ranking surveys, and SCORM media. Eventually we might do something about sidebar blocks that include hashtag searches in Twitter, various different kinds of things that we want to be able to do. Here's an example of the Blackboard Collaborate usage, start date and end date, because we have multiple categories that might be operating at a given time, and the person who needed to use this report thought it would be more helpful to be able to do it by date. So this is the course, the collaboration start and end date, and we list some information here. Similarly, Kaltura resources by start and end date for the course, and the resource type, number of resources used per course. Quiz usage and details. We had some questions come up about whether how many of our courses are using multiple choice quizzes versus other kinds of assessments. So we list those here. We say how many questions there are across all the quizzes, how many of those are multiple choice versus other kinds of things like short answer or essay. So therefore, the percentage of them that are multiple choice, whether the questions were randomized. Tim wants me to scroll that one down. No, I don't think I want to do that. But you can have it if you want. You can run it on your own server. Randomized answers. And then I've got a bug in this version of this report that I need to work on, but the minimum quiz age and the maximum quiz age relative to today's date. So how old are these quizzes? How recently were these quizzes refreshed? And so I've got a quiz in here that's 233 days old. Probably that one needs to be refreshed, since it's not even drawing from a randomized question pool, and it doesn't randomize the order of the answers. So if we're going to use multiple choice quizzes, which I'm not a fan of anyway, we need them to be well designed, and we need to refresh them regularly. So that's what this is about. Attached file usage. I was asked to find out how much space we're using with attached files on courses. So I do this one by category, list the course, list the category name, total file size, how much of that is images, how much of that is media, and how much of that is other files, where media means like Kaltura streaming media. There's a sum at the end of all of this. And this was just, maybe we'll start to strip files out of old archived courses or something. We haven't decided exactly how we want to handle this yet, but it gives us a sense of how much space we're using for each of our terms. Turnitin assignment usage. We've just started using Turnitin this year. So by category, we can say start date and end date of the assignment. We see the course. We see what category the course appears in. These are winter undergraduate. We have graduate and School of Ed as well. Who the instructor is, who's using it, and who the email, what their email is, and how many Turnitin assignments they have. Resource course usage. We've started creating courses that have just static resources in that we want to reuse in multiple course sections. So for example, we have a course called Critical Thinking 502, and there are a bunch of resources for that course that don't change much. We don't want to have to put those into every section, so we put them into a resource course and link it up. And here we're just showing how many students we have being linked in from the different sections to this resource course. SCORM usage. We've made some tutorials and we're starting to add in some SCOs from other sources as well. We've been using Articulate Storyline. We also have been importing SCOs from other places, and we're just trying to find out how many of those are being used. LTI/external tool usage. Mostly it's our portfolio system, Chalk and Wire, but we do have some other cases we're using the OLLI Online Learning Initiative from Carnegie Mellon. They have some really nice LTI units that you can connect to about all kinds of different subjects. So we have some of that going on here. And we just like to be able to check and see how much that's being used. Okay, so that's it for the different reports that I wanted to show today. And I can take a couple of minutes and talk about what I use to develop these reports. Any questions before I do that? Still stunned. Tim wonders how this started. Can you say more about what you mean? Oh, did I just do it? What sort of institutional support do I get? Well, there's me. I started it because I worked in the instructional design team, and as I said, one of the first reports I wrote summarized some things that we could count about all of the courses that were in development that needed to be monitored. And we had been manually going in and counting, manually checking the syllabus to see whether it had been updated, manually checking to see if anything had been done with the course. You know, we had empty courses sometimes right up to the day that the courses went live. It was awful. And so that was the first report that I did. And now that's how we do that process. And over time, I started to continue to think about how can we save work? How can we pull information out of the system where it can be counted? Not everything can be counted. When we look at some of these reports, they tell us, you know, so many clicks happened. They don't tell us that what happened was any good. But if nothing's happening, then maybe you should go look. So I really consider a report like this, the online participation report, you know, the fact that this instructor posted 128 times or, you know, made 128 updates in this course this week doesn't mean that they were good. It just means that they did post. Whereas on the other hand, nobody posted in this course. That's probably, well, this course I happen to know hadn't started yet. But when we see, you know, seven posts in a course with 10 students, that's a slow start. We've got some questions about the database model. I'll get to that in just a sec. Gareth asks, could this sort of custom extraction of data be used to drive badge awarding criteria? I would like that so much, but not currently. There isn't a way to link up course reports versus badges yet. So you'd have to manually award the badges on the basis of these reports. I would actually like to use this to construct badge awarding criteria. I think that would be really great. It seems to me that that would be more likely to happen if configurable reports munged in together with Tim's plugin were part of core as opposed to being separate pieces. I think it would be easier to implement them. So let me just pop over again to the end here. How did I find information about the structure of the tables? Okay, so first of all, I went to the ad hoc reporting, and the ad hoc reporting page has all these sample pieces of code, sample SQL reports. And that's where I started, by looking at those and pasting some of them in and seeing what they did and making little tweaks and seeing how this whole thing worked. Then I found out that my hosting provider Yeah, this is a typical learning curve. My hosting provider already gave us phpMyAdmin, which I hadn't realized. So I started using that, and I click around inside and just look at the information and try to see how it fits together. Sometimes you can get a little bit more help. There are some SQL schema available for download, and I look at those in MySQL Workbench so I can see some of how the various bits and pieces connect. I have been working with databases for a while, so I know something about how they work, and that has helped me be able to read these things as I link them together. Sometimes there's not enough documentation about what I want, so I end up doing this. This is my old school documentation where a custom add-on that didn't have any information about its database structure, I had to just kind of go through and start piecing together how the various tables were connected and how they were connected back to the parts of Moodle proper. And I have this sitting in my office, and I look at it constantly when I'm working. I think that answers the question of whether I reverse engineer. Yes, the XMLDB editor and click doc. That works sometimes. It does not work for all of the tables. So I do that, but it doesn't always help, at least on my instance of Moodle. Tim says there are supposed to be comments on the tables and columns. I have not always found those comments to be very helpful. I just have to say sometimes they are very obscure. Other questions? Okay, Tim, I will try to file some bugs for the specific ones to be fixed. I didn't realize that that was something that was being tracked that way, but of course it is. I should have thought of that. Okay, edits or substantial changes, what's making that decision? In the logs, in the log table, see if I can, hang on just a second, see if I can at least get a screenshot that I can paste in. Okay, this will take a second or two to come up, but because I've got to log back into phpMyAdmin to do this, but I can get you a picture of that. Moodle distinguishes in its own logging between views and edits. So that's actually something that you can, when you're looking at the logs, you can filter on views and edits. This is the old logs. The new logs actually has a further breakdown, which I haven't looked at in detail yet. I know generally how it works, but since I don't have it on my production system yet, this is going to take forever. No, that's modules. Okay, well, it'll be up in a minute. So what I do is I filter on whether the text of the edit is like or not like %view%. If it's like %view%, it counts as a view. Otherwise, it counts as an edit. Now, that's a little loose, but it's not a. It works for the most part because inside courses where I'm doing things, we don't mostly see too many error messages. I really should be filtering those out as well. So I kind of want to look a little bit more closely at this. It's just that I knew that the logging system was about to change, and I need to update my reports to take advantage of the new logging system, and I haven't done that yet. I am going to post the code for all of my reports so that up on the ad hoc queries page so that people can see them. Some of them are there already, but I'll post the rest of them. Neil, what do you mean by how different courses are from each other? The structure, yeah, the structure of what needs to be done each week can vary, but if there's something that actually has to be done, then some kind of edit is probably what it amounts to. They're going to be submitting something. The other thing that I do in some reports is I distinguish between submissions to an activity that has a grade and other kinds of submissions, like to a forum that isn't being graded. But that's loose because forum grading isn't implemented yet. We were hoping to help fund that, but we had a little budget crunch and haven't been able to help with that yet. Does that help answer your question, though? Other questions? Anything I can answer for anyone? I'll point out that Anne gave us a suggestion of using a test database, dumping it, executing a use case, and doing a DB dump again. Compare the two to see what changed. I will do things like that sometimes on my, I have some Sandbox and Scratch servers, so sometimes I'll do it there. I don't actually do the dump. I just use phpMyAdmin and look directly at the structure after I do things that would change something. Usually I don't have to do it that way, but sometimes I do. Early on, I had to do it more often. I had to fiddle with things and then look at the tables to see what changed so I could try to figure out how the tables were connected to each other. Once I got going with it, I found for the most part, I was able to just figure out how things were supposed to be connected. I will say one of the reports that I was working on, the report I worked on today that shows which resources are being used, was a pain to write because I wanted to be able to say, okay, for all of these different resources, were they being used or not? And you can't get the name of the resources from a single table. So this is the report. To get the item name, I had to link in every single extra activity table, module table through the course modules and get the name, and then I had to do a bunch of coalesce statements to be able to stick them all together. And yeah, the name should be in course modules. That's just bogus. I mean, everything has a name, so why isn't it in course modules? That didn't need to be abstracted out. Oh, well, old database design, I suppose, but the name gets repeated in grade items. So I wish it could be repeated in course modules. It wouldn't hurt. Just one more column in that table, please. Just for reporting purposes. It would be so much easier. I mean, I don't know as I'd be brave enough to take it out of the activity table, like, you know, the assignments table, you know, Moodle assignments, or, well, Moodle assign now or whatever, but I'd like to also see it in the course modules table. Well, it seems like we've a lot of the reports are log-based. A lot of them are, not all of them. I mean, some of them are about the specific items. The course review counts up different kinds of items that are attached to the course. Content per week counts up items that are attached to the course. The log reports are not super slow. They're actually pretty good. You know, one of them might take like a whole minute to run, but that's one that's sweeping the whole site. So the ones that take longer to run are the ones that I would particularly like to have run at a scheduled time and mail themselves to particular people. That would really be ideal. But again, I can only do that using the ad hoc queries report, and that won't mail to people who aren't admins or on a, have particular permissions. So I have this this dummy account that has the appropriate permissions, but actually goes to an email distribution list so that I can email things out. Tim, no, it will only email to somebody whose account has the permissions. You can't just put in an email address. You have to put in the name, the username. Neil asks, what time frame of logs do you keep at your institution? 6 months, 1 year, etc. We have not gotten rid of any logs yet. Our database is huge. We need to clean out old logs, but we can't, I don't want to even tell anybody that we need to do that until I get my dissertation done, because I need the data. But I am trying to pull down a copy of it locally, and then I'm going to suggest that we get rid of the stuff that's older than a year. Our students continue to have access to courses. Our graduate students continue to have access for the duration of their program, which can be a couple of years. And says, how hard do I think converting to the new log system will be? I don't know yet. Probably it won't be that bad. I understand more or less what was done. And I now know pretty well how the logs work in the system I've got. So I think I'll be able to convert them. It'll probably take me a week in between other stuff that I do, and then I'll have to do some testing. I haven't worried about it too much because we can't go to 2.8 anyway. But hopefully we will be going, we think that they're going to have a solution that will make it possible for us to go to 2.8 within the next week or so. So I am starting to look at converting the reports to use the new log system. In the meantime, since we have legacy logs turned on, these do still work. Well, we really are coming right up against the hour. Everybody has had great questions. Anne asked a question, main difference to Tim's ad hoc queries. Those can be run by admins only. Tim thinks that custom SQL will email to any email address. I don't know, Tim, if we were in a position to pay each other off on a wager, I would make you that wager because I've tried it. On the other hand, it's your plugin, so you probably know. Maybe it's just my version. Maybe the latest version does it.
Hello, Gareth from the iMoot team here. Elizabeth, thank you very much indeed. We're absolutely stunned. So much to take in, absolutely brilliant. I mean, also thank you very much for presenting a second time. Always great when presenters do that, and that's brilliant because it's so much effort that goes into this. Time-wise, we're still fine. Even though the presentation can take an hour, we've still got another 15 minutes there. Who wants to ask any more questions? Quite happy to continue for that amount of time. We do allow Slack, so yeah. Once again, a big round of applause. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, Tim says in the latest version, the email address is a free text input. Excellent. So that will help. I'd still like to have it sort of all together, but I mean in one plugin, but that would just be a huge help because the ad hoc queries report that Tim has written has the scheduling features that I need. So I actually have some of these reports written in both formats so that they can automatically email themselves to managers once a week and things like that. And fortunately, they use the same, almost identical formats for code. Oh, Tim's plugging for his talk, which I'm sure will be really excellent and which I will probably miss because I'm going to be on the road. I got to go drive home. But I am available still. Does anybody have any more questions? Since Gareth says we can take time, I'll take a couple more minutes if anybody has questions. All right, it seems like we are trickling out. Oh, here's another one. Anne is still wondering if the main difference between me and Tim is admin rights. You mean the difference between configurable reports and the ad hoc queries reports? Configurable reports is designed to be made accessible to a broad audience and to even let people write their own read-only reports using a form-based interface. The custom SQL plugin that Tim wrote really was designed for admins and isn't designed so much for other people to be able to go in and create reports, and is very restrictive about who can go in and view reports. But a lot of the code is the same. And I know that the configurable reports, which Juan Levia produced, was produced largely by adapting pieces of the custom SQL plugin. I very briefly showed some of the form-based reports back at the beginning of the presentation. I didn't really show an example of a report like that, but here's the interface. The reports that I showed were SQL-based. My dissertation is going to be about looking at the things that we're able to track that we consider to be sort of learning analytics, and find out which of them really do predict student completion, student engagement, and student completion of courses. It's not off topic too much from my point of view. I don't know how interested other people are. Hang on a sec. Do you guys like stats? All right, let's see if I can. I need a whiteboard page. Oh, let's try doing it this way. Okay, hang on just a sec. And where did I put this? All right.
Right, Elizabeth, have you found it? I think there must be a way in Big Blue Button to change to a white screen somewhere and remove the presentation.
Actually, just hang on a sec.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully you can see a slide. So my research question is, what factors will most strongly predict student completion of courses where they actually get credit, college credit for a course? Some of those factors will be within our control, some not, and we'll want to be using those to guide policy. The simplest model is that there are some course design features, some instructor delivery features like instructor presence, that will contribute in some way to student engagement. There are some other factors, student course completion. Here's my structural equation model. And it didn't get most of the Greek letters here. But in general, again, okay, so I've got some course design elements which may be influenced by factors of the course developer person, factors about the course like what subject it is, what level it is, whether it's a general ed requirement, that kind of thing. And then instructor presence, how often the instructor is logged in may be partially a matter of what kind of design it was. So was there something for the instructor to do every week? And also some things about how experienced the instructor is. And then we think that these will influence student engagement. Now, instructor presence and student engagement probably influence each other. And the students' engagement is probably influenced in part by how the course is designed. Is there something for the students to do every week? And then there are some student factors like their age and their socioeconomic status. And all of these contribute to the students actually completing the course, which is what I'm taking as my known good. So some of the, some of the factors that I'm looking at are, is there an introductions form? These came out of our recently published instructor expectations guidelines. So these are directly operationalized versions of the provost document that was sent out saying, do this, do that. So I'm wondering if it'll matter if form ratings are used and if the form completion is checked off in Moodle and things like that. So I'm going to be checking some of these. Instructor presence, posts per week, replies per week, percentage of students the instructor has replied to, whether the first post of the instructor is within the second day of the week, whether assignments are graded within 7 days. I'm pretty sure this one affects things, but I want to check that statistically. What percentage of the grades had written feedback as well as just a number? Percentage of days that the instructor logged in and viewed things versus the days they were active, posting and adding resources and that sort of thing. The maximum number of contiguous days not logged in, maximum number of contiguous days, no edits, etc. Neil asks, have I done or seen anything that would help know the amount of time an instructor is working in a course? That's partially what I'm getting at here, but you really can't tell in an online environment because they might be writing lots of documents or recording something in a system not connected to Moodle. They might be on a Moodle page and walk away. You really can't tell. So I can look at some of these kinds of factors, but I can't tell about a whole range of other factors. I have no visibility to them. So I'm going to always assume that there's an other category for things I can't see. And I want to find out to what extent is it affected by the things I can see, while not assuming that it's only affected by the things I can see. So student engagement, posts per week, mean time between posts, the variance between post time and the end of week. So did they wait until the last day and do all the posting then? Replies to instructor posts and replies to other student posts are kind of the network, to what extent they're connected to lots of people, percentage of on-time assignment submissions, maximum number of contiguous days with no submissions, variance of logins per week. Is it better if they are steady about how often they log in, or does it matter? My preliminary data says no, it doesn't matter if it's steady or if it goes way up and down. There doesn't seem to be any link here, but that's very, very preliminary. And then some of the other factors like the amount of experience the instructor has, whether we've been offering this course for a long time, how tightly the correlation is between the pass rate of this course with student GPA, at the student level, how many transfer credits a student had, because we know that students who come in with more transfer credits tend to do better in online courses, stuff like that. So there's some other stuff here that I'm not going to go into. So yeah, that's my the beginning of my dissertation proposal. If you know anything about this sort of thing and you want to collaborate, or you have any suggestions or comments, I would really love to hear from you. I'll be doing the dissertation proposal and defense probably early this summer, and I have all of the data. I'm the Moodle system administrator, so, you know, I have all this data, but I'd really like to find out what out of this data is actually useful. And when I talk about validating learning analytics, that's what I mean. Any other questions? Yeah, I will be presenting at MoodleMoot in August, face-to-face. Yeah, the US Moot. Thank you. North America. I'm happy to travel to other places, but I don't have funding for that. I will be presenting at the US Moot in the middle of my research, but I hope to have some preliminary results.
Okay, I think we're at the end of questions. We're happy to leave the room open for a little bit longer for people general chit chats, but I was going to stop the recording. Once again, Elizabeth, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you all for your time.